You weren't supposed to hear this, but, I mean, I'll probably say yes, just for the trip. And the ring, obviously. But I'm not spending my life with him. That was the first sentence. Just 12 words. 12 stupid, horrifying words that rewired my brain and punched a hole straight through the center of my chest. I was in the parking lot of a Target. Not dramatic, just Tuesday things. I had picked up her dry cleaning, grabbed a replacement charger for her MacBook, and was sitting in the car waiting for traffic to die down before heading home. My phone buzzed. A voice memo. From her. She never sends me voice memos. It auto-played through the car's Bluetooth speakers before I could even think. I froze. The air in the car turned toxic. I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. Like, I don't hate him. He's nice. But he's so boring. God. Sometimes I swear if he tells me one more story about concrete or bridge design or whatever the hell, I'm gonna throw myself into traffic. I need fire. I need someone who makes me feel something. Not someone who folds my laundry and calls it love. The next second lasted a year. There was a pause. A small laugh. Then, anyway, don't feel bad for him. He'll survive. Guys like him always do. They're built for loneliness. I was still holding her dry cleaning. A lilac sweater slipped off the hanger and landed on the floor of my car like a final insult. She had meant to send that message to her sister, or her friend, or whoever she unloads her venom to when I'm not around. But she sent it to me. And now? Now I knew the truth. This wasn't a bump in the road. This wasn't cold feet. This wasn't stress. This was who she really was. And I was done being the man she stepped on to reach her next chapter. That night, I didn't cry. Not yet. I packed. Slowly. Methodically. Quietly. But before I left, I did something else. Something she'll never forget. Something she didn't see coming. I left her something she couldn't delete. I didn't pack like someone running away. I wasn't shoving clothes into bags with tears streaming down my face while a sad playlist played in the background. No, I moved like an accountant closing his books for the year. Calm, efficient, deliberate. One drawer at a time. One piece of my life at a time. She was still at her Pilates class or wherever she went to pretend she was a better person than she actually was. I had at least 90 minutes, and I wasn't going to waste them. I packed only what I needed. My tools, my documents, my grandfather's old watch, and a jacket she always hated but I secretly loved. Everything else, the shared furniture, the framed photos of fake happiness, the stupid scented candles she insisted gave our place mood, I left untouched. I wanted her to feel the silence when she walked in. I wanted her to notice what was missing, not what was left. Before I zipped the last bag, I opened her closet. Her wedding dress was hanging there in a clear plastic garment bag, all delicate lace and pretense. She had spent weeks obsessing over it. I remember the night she tried it on for me, spinning like a child, saying, "Can you believe someone like me is marrying someone like you?" I had smiled. Like a fool. Like a damn fool. I didn't damage it. I'm not that guy. But I took a small Post-it, wrote 8 words in black Sharpie, and slid it into the clear garment bag, just under the neckline of the dress. Now I know why you never looked happy. I didn't leave it on her pillow. I didn't send a text. That note, right there on her precious dress, would hit harder than anything I could say with my voice. Because she wouldn't see it right away. Not until she pulled it out again. Not until the wedding was looming. Not until she thought she had gotten away with everything. I left my key on the kitchen counter. And then I walked out the door. I stayed at a cheap motel on the edge of town that night. Cigarette burns on the sheets, a buzzing light above the mirror, and the kind of silence that eats at you like rust. But it was better than the apartment, our apartment, which now felt like a crime scene. I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying her words in my head, trying to decode the tone. The laughter. The casual cruelty. It wasn't just what she said. It was how easy it sounded for her to say it. Like she'd rehearsed it before. Like I was the last to know what everyone else already did. Around 2:47 a.m., I opened her Instagram. She had posted a boomerang of her and some guy clinking wine glasses at some rooftop place I didn't recognize. The caption said, "Grateful for people who see the real me." The real her? She didn't know it yet, but she was about to find out what I had seen. And I wasn't done digging. Because that voice memo, it was just the surface. And I had a sick feeling it went deeper than I wanted to admit. So the next morning, I started tracing the cracks in our so-called life. And that's when I discovered something she thought I'd never see. A second number on our shared phone plan. A burner phone, hidden under a fake name. And a history that would unravel everything. The phone that wasn't supposed to exist. I used to handle our phone bills. She always said numbers made her dizzy, and I, like the dependable idiot I was, took it as a compliment. So I never questioned the line item labeled AUX device. I assumed it was her iPad or one of those smartwatches she never used. But sitting in that motel, staring at the PDF of our last bill, I noticed something odd. It wasn't a tablet. It had call and text history, and it was active heavily. The number was registered to someone named Mona Griggs, a name I'd never heard her say once in our entire relationship. The billing address was ours. The device model? A burner phone. Prepaid. Untraceable. Except she'd gotten lazy and linked it under our plan, probably to save money. Classic. I called the number. It went straight to voicemail. Not the default robot voice either. Her voice. She said, "Hey, this is Taryn. Leave a message if I trust you." Her name. Her voice. Her arrogance. I felt physically ill. I waited until noon when I was sure she'd be out at one of her tasteless brunches or vanity meetings, then went back to the apartment. I still had access to the garage code. She never thought I'd return. I was in and out in under 10 minutes. The burner phone was hidden behind the stack of linen boxes in her closet, where I once offered to install better shelving, and she snapped at me for cluttering her flow. It was inside an old sunglasses case wrapped in a pair of leggings. She really thought she was slick. I turned it on. What I found was not what I expected. There were no explicit photos, no sexts, no romantic heart emojis with someone named River or Jay or any of the names I had cooked up in my head the past few days. No, this was worse. It was subtle. It was layered. It was strategic. There were messages going back over 8 months between her and a contact saved only as C. No last name. No photo. Just a letter. But the messages, God, they weren't romantic. They were cruel. Strategic. They talked about me like I was a business deal they were trying to close. He thinks the prenup is just a formality. I told him it's because of my dad's estate. LOL. When the papers are signed, I'm calling my shot. I want out by winter. I'll take the loft, and if he gives me lip, I'll play the panic card. You were right. Guilt works best with guys like him. I just have to act wounded and fragile, and he folds. Fold. Is that what she thought I was doing all this time? Folding? Like I was some origami version of a man she could bend to her convenience? There was one voice message that hit harder than all the rest. She said, "Honestly, I've been rehearsing how I'm going to cry when I say I need space." He'll believe it. He wants to believe I'm still the girl he met. But I'm not. I outgrew him 2 years ago. I just didn't want to move out while the market was still trash. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the delete button like a useless reflex. But I didn't delete it. I backed up everything to a flash drive. Dates, times, files. I wasn't just the victim anymore. I was the witness. And I had evidence. I left the apartment again, slower this time. More tired. That day didn't end with some bold decision or fiery vengeance. No. It ended with me sitting alone in my truck in the parking lot of a gas station, eating a stale protein bar, asking myself the stupidest question of all. Was any of it real? The laughter. The kisses. The Sunday mornings with pancakes and records. The way she used to wrap herself around me in bed and whisper, "Promise me we'll never get boring." Was that all just performance? Or was I just the guy she practiced with before becoming the woman she wanted to be, with someone else? I didn't know yet, but I was going to find out. And if she wanted to play this like a business deal, well then, I'd show her how cold I could be when it came to cutting my losses. The ex who wasn't supposed to matter. There was a guy she never talked about, but his name lived in the corners of her silence. That's the thing about women like her. They're good at leaving parts of their past unspoken, but never truly buried. His name was Micah. Once, 2 years ago, I saw his name pop up on her phone. Not in a text, just a missed call notification. When I asked, she flinched, smiled tightly, and said, "Oh, he's just some ghost from college. Nothing to worry about." So I didn't worry. But that was before I learned she had burner phones and fake names and private plans that involved folding me like a beach chair after the honeymoon. Now I worried. I didn't have Micah's last name, but I remembered that she mentioned once, during a tipsy late-night story, that he played drums for some indie band out in Columbus. A quick Google search led me to an old photo on a dusty Facebook page, then to an Instagram that hadn't been updated in 6 months. But his email was public. I didn't know what I was even going to say. I wasn't expecting anything. But I sent the message anyway, short and honest. You don't know me, but I'm Taryn's fiancé. Or I was. I think you might want to talk. He replied within 10 minutes. Meet me at Sacred Grounds on 6th, noon. Don't bring her. The coffee shop was small, hollowed out of a former church. Wooden beams above, mismatched chairs below, and a barista who looked like she hated happiness. Micah was already there when I arrived. He was wearing a black hoodie, eyes hidden behind round sunglasses, hair buzzed short. No smile, just a nod. I sat across from him and tried to gauge if he already hated me, or if I was just a familiar reminder of a mistake he hadn't made in time. He didn't ask questions, just said, "She did it to you too, huh?" That was when my mouth dried out. It was a weird kind of comfort, the worst kind, to realize I wasn't special even in my own heartbreak. Micah told me they dated for 3 years. She left him on a Tuesday, no warning, just a note and a deactivated number. He said it nearly broke him. She drained his savings under the guise of starting a joint design business. Took the money, built a solo brand, and ghosted him. It was the first time I heard someone use the phrase emotional grand larceny, and it stuck. But what chilled me wasn't what she did to him. It was what he said next. She said the exact same things about me that you're probably hearing now. That I was boring, predictable, that I wanted to trap her in a small life. She has a playbook. You're just on the last chapter now. I showed him the texts, the messages to see, the voicemail about her fake tears. He didn't even blink. Yeah, that tracks. I asked him who he thought C was. He looked down, stirred his coffee even though it was cold, and said, "You won't like it, but I think it's her sister." That hit me in a place I didn't know I still had feelings left. Mallory? Her sister? The one who cried when we got engaged and said I was the only man she'd ever seen truly love Taryn without conditions? That Mallory? Micah leaned forward and whispered, like it mattered. They've always been more of a team than a family. You were never marrying into them. You were a shared investment, something they built a strategy around. Don't take it personally. It's just who they are. We sat in silence for a while after that. 2 men, different years, same broken outline. He paid for my coffee. I didn't argue. I walked out of that place with a head full of ghosts and a stomach full of acid. I called my mother, just to hear someone who didn't lie to me speak my name. She didn't know anything was wrong, but she said, "You sound thin, Curtis. Like you're wearing your bones on the outside." I told her I was just tired. That night, I didn't sleep. Again, I scrolled back through every photo, every text, every laugh from the last 4 years trying to see if anything had been real, and kept coming up empty. But I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was still collecting. Because what do you do when someone designs your downfall like a Pinterest board? You don't scream. You don't cry. You plan your exit so well they don't even know you're gone. And when they finally figure it out, all that's left is the hole you left behind. The game you didn't know I could play. People think revenge is loud. That it's throwing plates, keying cars, shouting in parking lots while the neighbors record you on their phones. But that's not what real revenge looks like, not for people like me. Mine wasn't fire. It was ice. And it started the night after I met Micah, when I opened her laptop with hands that didn't shake anymore. I knew the password. Of course I did. Golden hour 92. Her favorite time of day and her birth year. Cute, right? I used to think it was romantic. Now it felt like a lock code to a vault where she stored pieces of every man she's ever used and discarded. I wasn't looking for dirt. I wasn't hoping to find another secret affair or a bank account with some stranger's name. I was looking for leverage. I wanted to know how deep this went. What exactly she thought she had built around me. Turns out, she kept folders for everything. Literal folders, not just wedding plans and budgets and venue contracts, but a folder titled Exit Strategy. Inside were notes, spreadsheets, timelines. There were even mock-ups of Instagram captions she'd used to announce our amicable separation after the wedding, complete with hashtags about self-growth and learning to let go. Like my heartbreak was just a brand moment waiting for its scheduled post date. But the real kicker? A spreadsheet listing assets, furniture, appliances, my truck, color-coded based on what she thought she could claim in a post-nup. She had labeled it, Projected Life Gains. I stared at that phrase for a long time. Projected. Life. Gains. I wasn't even a person to her. I was a collection of items and emotional reactions she thought she could choreograph. And suddenly, I stopped feeling sad. I stopped replaying that voice memo in my head. I stopped wondering what I did wrong or how I could have loved her better. Because this wasn't a failed relationship. It was a heist. And the only mistake I made was not noticing I was the vault. So, I started dismantling her plans, quietly, efficiently, like a man doing spring cleaning. I froze the shared bank account she used for wedding deposits. Left a polite email to our venue coordinator stating the event may be subject to cancellation. I withdrew the savings from the down payment fund and moved it into a private account under my own name. She never noticed. She had long stopped checking those details herself. Then I called my friend Eli, who owed me a favor from back when I helped him through a nasty divorce. He's a family lawyer now, specializes in prenups. I sent him the screenshots of her spreadsheets. He called me 20 minutes later and said, "Curtis, you need to get out before she files anything first. If she files with the documents you just showed me, she walks away with way more than she deserves." I asked what I should do. He said, "Burn her plan before she lights the match." And so I did. The next day, I met with a notary and had my own document drawn up. One that stated she forfeits all claims to my personal property, assets, and vehicle in the event of any misconduct, deception, or premeditated exit strategy. I didn't serve her with it yet. That wasn't the point. The point was, I had it now. It existed. It had teeth. And it made me feel like I finally had ground beneath my feet again. Meanwhile, she was still playing pretend. She sent me texts about cake tastings and whether we should upgrade our seating chart to include her cousin's new boyfriend. Because he's like, super important in the crypto space. I responded with emojis and sounds good babes. Let her believe I was still inside the snow globe she built. But I wasn't. I was outside now, watching, and building a plan of my own. The final trigger came 3 nights later, when I received an anonymous email with no subject line and no text body, just a screenshot. A picture of her, with someone else. Not kissing, not even touching, but sitting close, laughing, looking at him like she used to look at me back when I still believed love didn't come with a terms and conditions page. I zoomed in. The name tag on his shirt said Carson. The contact in her burner phone? The mysterious C. She hadn't even bothered to change his name for real. That was the last piece I needed. The final confirmation that this wasn't confusion or cold feet or miscommunication. It was intentional. She wanted to burn me down slowly, in stages, under the guise of a mature breakup. She had no idea that I was already dismantling the foundation beneath her feet. But she'd find out soon enough. Because the dress fitting was in 3 days. And I was planning to show up. Just not in the way she expected. This time, I was the one performing. It's a strange feeling, walking into a room where everyone thinks you're still in love. They look at you with warmth, with small smiles, with casual nods that say, "This guy? He's lucky." If they only knew. The boutique fitting room smelled like eucalyptus and soft music played from invisible speakers. Everything was pale, ivory, champagne, blush, and lies. Her mother was there. Her sister, Mallory, was sipping something from a crystal flute like she'd already won. I wanted to punch the air out of the room, but instead, I smiled. That's the thing about me. I learned from the best. If they wanted performance, I'd give them a standing ovation. Taryn was radiant. That's the cruel part. She stood on a little platform in front of the triple mirror, half-zipped into a dress that looked like it belonged in some bridal fantasy catalog. She didn't see me at first. Her back was to the door, and the stylist, some overexcited intern named Ava, was fussing over the hem like it was sacred. When she finally turned and saw me standing there, she blinked like I was a ghost. Not afraid, just surprised, like I wasn't supposed to be real outside of her script. "Curtis?" she asked, with a smile so sugary I could feel my teeth rot. I walked in slowly, holding a small white envelope in my hand. No threats, no outburst, just the thing she hated most in the world, the unknown. "I thought I'd stop by," I said, placing the envelope on the glass counter beside a rack of glittering veils. "Just wanted to bring you something." Mallory raised an eyebrow. Her mother shifted uncomfortably. Ava glanced between us, confused by the lack of fireworks. Taryn took the envelope carefully, her eyes scanning my face for clues. I made sure she wouldn't find any. "What is it?" she asked, forcing a laugh. "Just a little something to mark the countdown," I replied. Then I left. No dramatic pause. No, we need to talk. Just left her there in the center of the room, the queen of a castle built on sand, holding the envelope like it might explode in her hand. Inside, She'd find a copy of the prenup addendum I had drawn up, the one she hadn't seen, hadn't signed, and definitely hadn't expected. Along with it was a letter. Not handwritten. She would have loved that, and I wasn't in the business of giving her anything else she loved. In the letter, I laid it all out. No accusations. No profanity. Just clean lines and quiet bombs. You once told me I was the safest man you'd ever known. You said it like it was a compliment, but I know now you meant it as an excuse. You wanted safe so you could plan your escape without ever worrying if I'd noticed the door opening. You wanted a man who would feed you lies by the spoonful, because the truth is too rich for your taste. Here's mine. I know about Carson. I know about the burner phone. I know about the projected life gains. You thought you were playing chess, but you were just rearranging pieces on a board I already flipped over. I ended it with one sentence. If you still want the wedding, you'll need to sign that new agreement first, in front of my lawyer. The beauty of it? She couldn't scream. Not there. Not in front of her mother. Not in that dress. She'd have to wait until later, when the lights were off and the mask could drop. And by then, I'd be long gone. That night, she called me 3 times. I didn't answer. Then came the text. You're being cruel. I laughed. Out loud. In the dark. Like a man who finally stopped asking permission to feel something. She was right, though. I was being cruel. But only because I had been kind for too long. Kindness, with her, was a language she never learned to speak. And cruelty, when wielded properly, doesn't have to be loud. It can be a whisper that echoes longer than any scream. So I waited. Because if I knew Taryn, and I did, she wouldn't walk away. Not yet. She'd want to fix the optics. Hold on to the illusion just long enough to figure out how to regain control. But she didn't know that the next move was already in motion. And this time, the audience wasn't going to clap for her. When the spotlight turned on her, I knew she'd make it public. That's who Taryn was. She didn't react, she performed. Pain wasn't something she admitted. It was something she reframed. She would never scream in a voicemail or rage in a text. No, she'd wait until she could spin it in a way that made her the misunderstood heroine in a story no one else had the courage to tell. I expected a post. Maybe a quote. Something vague and self-important like, sometimes growth means releasing what you thought you needed. But what she did was so much worse. She threw an engagement party. A surprise one. For me. She sent out invitations through one of her PR clients. Stylish digital cards. Black and gold. No RSVP. Just a time, a place, and the promise of an unforgettable evening celebrating love, loyalty, and new beginnings. I didn't even get the invite. I found out from a mutual friend who texted me with, "Yo bro, congrats. Didn't know you two were back on." Back on. I hadn't spoken to her in days. And yet, here she was, constructing a full narrative around our reconciliation, dragging my name into one final illusion she could parade around before everything collapsed. I could feel it. She wasn't just trying to save face. She was cornered. The prenup addendum. The voicemail. The spreadsheet. She knew the walls were caving in. And in her mind, a public spectacle was the best way to pressure me back into the script. It worked on everyone else. Not on me. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I showed up. Not because I wanted to see her. Not because I cared what she told them. But because there's a certain kind of power in confronting the lie while it's still trying to be believed. The venue was some rooftop garden above a boutique hotel downtown. Fairy lights, signature cocktails, music just loud enough to prevent honest conversation. The crowd was mostly her side. Influencers, stylists, past clients, people who spoke in hashtags. I walked in alone, dressed in the same black suit she once told me made me look like someone with secrets. She had no idea. When she saw me, her whole body stiffened like a puppet someone just dropped. But then the smile came. Like clockwork. Like she could still salvage this. She walked over and leaned in for a kiss. I turned my cheek. The cameras caught that. Good. Babe, you came, she said, holding my arm tightly, smiling at everyone but me. I looked around and said quietly, "Why don't you tell them what this really is?" Her eyes didn't even flicker. "Curtis, please," she whispered, teeth clenched, smile fixed. So I took the mic. I hadn't planned on speaking. I wasn't even sure I'd stay longer than 10 minutes. But standing there, watching her bask in borrowed love, I realized I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to call her names or expose screenshots. I just needed to say one truth, clearly, and leave the rest to gravity. I tapped the glass. The music lowered. A few people clapped out of instinct. I waited. Then I said, "Thank you all for coming. Really, I know a lot of you think you're here to celebrate love, but tonight's not about that. It's about timing. Because sometimes, just before a wedding, you learn something that makes you question whether the person you're marrying loves you, or loves the version of you they can control." People shifted. She didn't move. And when someone spends more time planning an exit strategy than planning a future, maybe the real celebration isn't the engagement. Maybe it's the escape. I smiled. I raised my glass. To new beginnings, and to seeing people clearly, no matter how long it takes. I set the mic down, walked past her sister, past every fake smile and polished outfit in the room. No one stopped me. And outside, in the quiet of the city, I felt something I hadn't in months. Light. But it wasn't over. Because 2 days later, I got a letter. Not a text. Not a call. A real envelope. Inside was a printed photo of us from 3 years ago, taken on some trip I had forgotten. On the back, in her handwriting, just 4 words. "You ruined everything early." That's when I realized she had one last move. And I had just triggered it. And then, finally, I chose myself. I stared at the photo for a long time. Not because it hurt. Not anymore. I stared because I couldn't recognize the man in it. He looked tired even then. Smiling. Yes, but in that way people smile when they've convinced themselves survival is the same thing as happiness. He had his arm around her, sure, but it looked like he was holding on out of fear, not love. And her message on the back? "You ruined everything early." At first, it landed like a punch. But then I laughed. Not bitterly. Not cruelly. Just honestly. Because the truth is, she was right. I did ruin everything early. I ruined the performance. I ruined the illusion. I ruined the version of myself that would have stayed quiet, signed the papers, and waited for the slow heartbreak to arrive in a gift-wrapped box called amicable divorce. And thank God for that. After that letter, she went quiet. No follow-up texts. No dramatic monologue. She just vanished the way people do when their final card doesn't land. I imagine she told a new story, one where I was controlling, or cold, or afraid of commitment. That's fine. Let her narrate whatever helps her sleep. Meanwhile, I moved. I left the apartment, the city, the echoes of a life built on emotional IOUs. I rented a little place outside Asheville. Nothing fancy, but it has this porch that catches the morning sun just right. I started working freelance. Fewer hours, less money, but more breathing room. I even bought a secondhand guitar, the one she always said was a phase I was too old for. Turns out it wasn't. Some days are still heavy. I won't lie. Healing isn't always clean. There are mornings I still catch myself wondering if any of it was real. If the way she once looked at me ever meant anything at all. But then I make coffee. I play a few chords. I feel the sun on my face. And I remember that I exist outside of what she wanted from me. One day, maybe I'll meet someone who doesn't see me as a project, a placeholder, or a stepping stone. Someone who doesn't flinch when I tell the truth. Who doesn't label kindness as weakness. But until then, I'm okay being alone. Not lonely, alone. There's a difference. The last time I saw her was accidental. 6 months later. A grocery store in Nashville. She didn't see me. She was arguing with some guy by the produce section, holding a phone in one hand and what looked like a wedding magazine in the other. I walked past quietly, unnoticed. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel sad. I just felt free. So, to anyone reading this, if you ever find yourself becoming small so someone else can feel big, walk. If someone weaponizes your stability against you, walk. And if someone builds a future with you just to rehearse their exit, don't just walk. Run. And don't look back. Because sometimes, ruining everything early is the best damn thing you'll ever do.